Hello everyone, my name is Nexus Floof and it is so lovely to see you today. I'm here to talk to you about Gene Stealer cults, specifically about the characters and list building process. With that as well, there is still just going to be some generalist advice starting off here at the beginning of the video. We're going over our characters, okay? Specifically the ones that can attach both leaders and supports, what they can attach to, and what you should be attaching them to, okay? So, without further ado, let's go ahead and roll that intro, baby. Woo! Okay, so this whole thing of philosophy of attaching characters, right? GSC is in a very particular spot to where our units are very cheap and our characters are very cheap. So a lot of times, while you could be adding buffs to units that seem very good and very cool, you can end up to where like you're 50% units and 50% characters, and that, if you're not knowing what you're doing, can actually bite you in the ass, right? A lot of times you could add a Primus to 5 Flacos and now they hit on 2s and have twin linked, and that sounds like a lot of good damage, but they're 75 points and the Primus is 70 points. You could also just have 5 more Flacos at that point, right? So it's this thing of, while we're talking about this today, I want to kind of keep this in the premise of, if we're ever attaching something for utility, that's when we're wanting to kind of keep things cheap, and we're fine attaching it to like the 5-man squads or the 10-mans in case of the neophytes. And then in the case of needing something for survivability or damage, outside of a very niche case scenario, we are more than likely going to be attaching things onto the max squad size units, like the 20-man neophytes, 10-man hybrid metamorphs, all that fun stuff, right? So just keep that in mind, okay? For damage and durability, go big. For utility, go small. Does that make sense? Cool. Also, cutting in here real quick with just a small thing. Before I super get into the characters, I do want to kind of describe what a lot of the units can join. Mostly this is editing floof, noticing that later on in the leader section, I didn't really say what everyone attached to. Most of everyone in the army can attach to acolytes with heavy mining tools, which I refer to as tacos a lot, acolytes with the hand flamers, which I refer to as flacos a lot, hybrid metamorphs, and neophytes. The tacos and the flacos tend to be a very self-sufficient unit that doesn't need buffs that I will explain a little bit later. The neophytes and the metas are already very good damage platforms by just the nature of them having good volume, and volume likes keywords. Thusly, keywords like lethal hits, sustained, +1 to wound, dev wounds, all that kind of stuff is where you like really want to see things. In terms of other units, the only weird ones that are out there is like the Jackal alphus joins with bikes, Abominant joins with aberrants, patriarch only goes with pure strain gene stealers. But everything else is basically that 4-core set of guys, right? Most of the time, if you're attaching things, it's just to metas or it's to neophytes. So anyways, that's my small cut in. Please enjoy the rest of the video. See ya. Starting off, supports. We are going to start from the worst and go up towards, in my opinion, the best. And that is going to make us start at the Locust. The Locust is 35 points for 5 attacks at 5/2/2, and it gives your squad fights first. He was like 10 points more in 10th edition, but his ability actually did something with fights first, and even then you never really saw him. He was fine, he was cute. Like, what he does right now, I just don't super love it. Yes, it gives your other character a feel no pain, but our other characters are 3 and 4 wounds. We're not giving a durable character more durability, right? We're not giving this to an Abominant. The Locust I have seen be more effective as enhancements, in my opinion, so take that as you will. Notably, going forward into the Clamavis, let me just mention all of our support characters basically attach to the same things. This is going to be hybrid metamorphs, which is a very good melee unit. Acolytes with hand flamers, which is a very good like trading skirmish unit, often taken in 5s. Acolytes with auto pistols, which can be either a utility piece or if you take it as a 10-man, an actual damage piece. And then the neophyte hybrids, which is either a nice scoring piece as just a 10-man or a damage/durability piece at the 20-man squads, right? Now let's talk about something with the Clamavis to where we also kind of have this with the Locust. Them being support characters is actually a nerf for these characters. The Locust, I would pay 35 points for a little cheap 32mm base that can drop down and go do me in action. That's fine. I'm totally okay with that. The Clamavis as well, to where you didn't ever really want to attach him to anything because he doesn't buff the unit at all, right? He doesn't give them anything. The Clamavis is a 12-inch deep strike denial zone, and then in your command phase, you pick something with 18, does not have to be visible, and you make them take a battle shock. That's it, right? It's fine. It does its job, but and so far it just doesn't buff up the unit, so you don't want to attach him to any units to give them buffs, but you need to because he's support. So the cheapest thing you're probably going to attach him to is 5 mining tool acolytes on your home point, right? 5 little tacos back there. But almost always we're having 2 ridge runners that have mortars. So we're already got like 190 points back there. It's 70 points for the tacos, 50 points for him, 120. You're looking at like 300 points that's going to be in your backfield. So you have to play a game to where we're already in kind of a bad state in the game right now. Down 300 points? That's really rough, right? So don't super love the Clamavis right now. He's a fine tech piece. If you have him in your list because you have a spare 50 points, that's fine. Just something that I don't love right now. Moving on to much more playable units, however, we do have the Nexos, which is great on most units, but because of the nature of the game, melee units often, when they're going in, are going to be taking a lot of damage, and with how not durable we are, we're not going to survive multiple rounds in the opponent's face, especially with the units that the Nexos can attach to. So he is a CP generation machine, right? Every battle round, you can target his unit with a strat and it reduces it by 1. You can also move the cult ambush markers, which does have niche case scenarios that I do like to use this unit. Where he shines is attached to neophytes, either in Host of Ascension when he is with the Primus that has the +1 to hit and the enhancement for lethal hits, and he allows them to go uppy downy, or he reduces the cost of the crit 5s, stuff like that. Because our shooting units tend to get multiple activations if we're smart with how we're, playing the game. And that allows you to be, for 60 points, he's already 10 points cheaper than the tacos. I've had games to where their little 4-up CP generation, I just never get. The Nexus is clean, he's consistent. If I can at least get 2 CP out of him throughout a game, I'm happy with him. Notably, I would not attach him to any of the 10s. This is something to where, even though he's a utility piece, he's utility in the fact that he enables your damage. So, there we go. The Biophagus now is going to be the end of our support characters as far as I understand it. It can attach to all 4 units that we talked about beforehand, but on top of that, they can also attach to the Aberrants, which is insane. This is the prime support character. This is the one that got buffed well, the Nexus also got pretty buffed as well from it, but this is the one that just loves being a support character, okay? Not only can you do a thing to where you attach them with an Abominant to Aberrants, but attaching them to metas that is also attached with an Icon Ward to give them a 4-up Feel No Pain. Very, very good. This is our main damage piece. You can get cute with it with some stuff, but like this is a lethal hits is very, very good for this army because we have a lot of volume, right? In the case of the Metamorphs, we have 50 attacks on the sweeps at 411. Or no, is it 50? Yeah, it's 50 attacks at 411, although 5 of those are 512. And then 32 attacks at 512, right? Just being able to give that lethal hit, so if we are going into something like a Catan, a Dorn, or anything like that, we still have this ability to have a little bit of punching up power, right? As well in Host of Ascension, to where if you are running it, you rapid ingress these guys, they'll have sustained hits, they'll have lethal hits, you could pop crit 5s and just, boom, just drop a bunch of dice on your opponent. As well, she gives a once a game +1 to wound against infantry. We're seeing a lot of elite bodies in the meta right now. This can very much help punching into any Custodes that you go into, any of these Terminators that are running around, and you're just throwing in a bunch of you're wounding them on 3s or 4s with, -2 AP because Ridge Runner support damage 2. That can help a lot, right? We don't have good damage 3 in the army, but, being able to just put mass amount of damage 2 because of the Biophages is very, very good. As well, her being able to join with Aberrants right now. We'll go into it in a second here because we're about to go into the Abominant, but though that's the main character pairing to where they buff each other a lot, and it's very, very good. So overall, I think our support characters, the Locust and the Clamavis, I would urge people to not really take the Clamavis. If you want to, I would say attach them to either 10 Neos or 10 Tacos. The Nexos likes to just be around the Neophyte units, specifically the 20s. And then the Biophagus really does like either the Hybrid Metamorphs, the Aberrants, or then also what you can do is they're fine with 10 man of tacos in like Xenocreed or even Biosanctic Broodsurge, because the detachment for Biosanctic specifically is keyworded to a Biophagus unit. Being able to give them +1 attack brings all of their damage 3 weapons on a 10-man squad from 12 attacks to 18, which is a very sizable jump up. They're fine, but I think the unit itself just isn't as innately powerful as Hybrid Metamorphs or the Aberrants are, and so it's just not something I super love. Now, moving on towards the Abominant. This, in my opinion, I wanted to start with the Abominant because he is like the primo. This is a guy that you can do no wrong with, okay? I have done it in all of 10th edition, and I'm probably looking forward to it in 11th edition to start doing this as well. Solo Abominant is phenomenal. This guy for 85 points just walks up, does a rapid ingress, anything, and it's just a chunk of wounds that's annoying to kill with 4 las cannon hits in melee, right? Strength 12, AP2, D6 +1 damage. He stands back up on a 2-up. That 5-up invuln and T6 is very annoying. As well, when he's leading a unit, he gives the whole unit fight on death on a 4-up, which is just insane with Aberrants, right? There's a very funny interaction here as well, to where fight on deaths now is you don't remove the model until the unit has activated. And so if you are with a Biophagus who gives this whole squad lethal hits, right, it's 1 billion attacks at 722 from the Aberrants, and then the Abominant is 4 attacks. Giving them all lethal hits is just a very good combo, but giving the Biophagus access to a 4-up fight on death enables you. I've had it to where we saw in my game against Forest on Tabletop Titans, which you should go check out. He had precisioned out my characters, right? He had killed the Biophagus, and then the Abominant was still left on some pile of wounds. The Biophagus rolled the 4-up to fight on death, which then allowed to where when the unit cracks back, they still have the lethal hits. And I'm pretty sure with the rulings now, because the unit stays until everything's done, she can still pop her +1 to wound against infantry. That's still a weird gray area, so I haven't done it in my games, but possibly if you're watching this at a later date, not on time of recording or release, which should be 8/20/2026, we might have a more defined answer to that. But these guys they're a great pairing. The Abominant, I think, is fine in a 5-man. He's fine in a 10-man. You keep him 5 as just a nice little efficient package in Biosanctic Broodsurge. A 10-man can go in just about its final day. Biosanctic, of course. I've been messing a little bit with Host of Ascension with the 10-man. Very good stuff. Overall, this is like our prime character of just, I can do no wrong, right? So, good stuff. Moving on to the leader of our cult is going to be the Patriarch. This unit is not in a state that I love it to be in. I'd like it to be more of a buff piece, but as it stands right now, I think it's a very versatile unit. It only having 5 attacks most of the time is a little awkward, but the buff it gives is very good and it's very relevant to the unit it gives it to, right? I wouldn't want to see something like sustained hits necessarily on Pure Strain Gene Stealers. I know that's kind of a wild take, but hear me out here. Of the 3 that I would consider, right? Sustained hits, lethal hits, and dev wounds. I think dev wounds is the most valuable for this unit because just giving it access to they already have a very high AP stat, right? Joining Pure Strain Gene Stealers, they are 4 attacks on 2s, strength 4, AP2, damage 1, right? You can increase the strength by 1 in Pure Strain Broodswarm. You can increase the AP in just about every game because you can tag them with a Ridge Runner, right? So they have very strong AP and they have a lot of volume. The 2 things that they struggle with is high durability targets and invulns, right? And dev wounds basically kind of rewards you for just being able to, did you roll enough 6s with the 40 attacks you have? 50 if you're in Biosanctic, right? It's 1 billion attacks. It's a good buff. The only times I would consider running him in a 5-man is we've seen these like cheap packages in like Final Day to where oftentimes he won't actually trade up in his value because the unit that he's going to be with is so expensive. But he's just a nice, efficient threat that really forces your opponent to have to play around him because you give him the no Overwatch enhancement. It's just a very clean package to have. However, most of the time I would recommend just have it be the 10 Pure Strain Gene Stealers, just because also in that detachment you can give Twin Linked, so it's 40 attacks on 2s with Strength 4, AP2 to 3, Dev Wound Access Twin Linked. That schmacks with infiltrate, advance, and charge, possibly no ignores Overwatch. This unit's insane. The patriarch enables a lot for this unit, and it's very, very good. Now, moving on, I want to finish up the Brood Coven, right? Well, we've started with Patty. Let's go ahead and keep going with the other two, right? And that's going to bring me to, God, I can't decide which one's worse. We're going to go with the Magus, okay? Magus kind of goes back to the Clamavis and the Locust stats of this unit does nothing for, there's no reason to join it, right? You could in Xenocreed so that it gets a 3-up Feel No Pain, but I would also just like another body to just have a different activation, right? To go stand and be a screen somewhere else. The Magus basically can unbattle shock something at the start of a phase within a certain distance of that model. And then every shooting phase in an aura of 18 inches, I believe hers is visible. It might not be. We can double check that, or at least Editor Floof will go ahead and do that. You pick something within 18, and then once a game it can be 24, and you roll a die. On a 1, you take 3 mortal wounds, and you're like, cool, I guess my Magus is at 1 wound now. But on a 2-up, that enemy unit is -1 to hit. And then on a 6, they're -1 to hit and -1 to wound. Now, that does sound very good, and into matchups that are not prepared for that kind of, those stats, that can be backbreaking, right? Into something like guard or things that don't ignore hit odds, being in cover and having their main shooting unit basically be -1 ballistic skill, -1 to hit, and possibly even -1 to wound into you, it can make the dice very fucky for them, right? And so, also double checking, I'm not seeing anything that is about visibility, so I think you can just do this however. You can have her behind a wall and doing it, which is very, very strong. Like, these are good things. They're cute, but I just like the meta how it is right now. It's so killy, and even in a world where obviously this can be watched months later than the meta we're in right now. Right now, GSC needs to be very efficient, and oftentimes we don't have that many points lying around for the cute tech pieces, right? And this is something to where it could work in some of the shooting matchups, right? Because Votann ignore hit mods, a lot of Tau stuff ignores hit mods, like there's a lot of Psychic in the game that will just ignore this altogether. So it doesn't do anything in melee matchups, and it might do something in shooting matchups. That's not the bet. Like, the abilities are good on paper, but then you look at how the game is based around them, and it's something to where this could be a pitfall. So I started testing her at first when we got into 11th edition, and I just have, she's always the first unit I take out to fit something else in. So it's unfortunate. I hope she does a little bit better for herself in 11th edition once we get our codex. Now, moving on to the Primus. This is something to where every time I look at this unit, boy howdy, do I just have visions of the glory days. Okay, so right now the Primus gives you a redeploy of 3 things after you have rolled, before you roll for first turn, and then it gives +1 to hit to its unit. The unfortunate thing about that is that is very anti-synergistic with a lot of the army right now. Final Day, when they're near Tyranids, you're +1 to hit. That's your detachment roll. Xenocreed, and also once again Final Day, when you use Vengeance of the Martyr or whatever the hell, your sources to improve your things are +1 to hit, right? So there's no real big stacking there. I'm still fine with him in Host of Ascension because Plunging Fire is a little bit easier to get into now, especially if you do have a 6-inch deep strike to kind of just give you that little bit of extra distance. And being able to fit your heavy weapons up on the 2nd floor to where you're +1 ballistic skill and +1 to hit from the Primus. Now all of your heavies go from hitting on 5s to 3s, which can be very nice. But it's definitely the 4th Neo Squad because I still value the lethal hits just a bit more, but it's kind of up in the air. Yeah, losing rerolls to hit, which he had in both Index and Codex, it's just rough. I don't love it. I think also right now with the power that we've seen the rest of the edition go to, I think this could be walked back, to be honest. I know I'm biased, but let me be biased. Now, we have only a couple characters left from what I'm remembering. I believe it's just the 11, right? We've done 4 support characters, and we're on our 4th leader, so we should only have 3 left. If I miss one, I apologize. I know I'm terrible. But we're going to go ahead and go on to the Acolyte Icon Ward. The Acolyte Icon Ward is, I think a character that on paper is very, very good. I think what she brings to the table is okay. Let me actually give what she does, right? She gives a 5-up Feel No Pain. She gives a ability to where if they walk within a blip, you can move that blip. But oftentimes, more than likely, she's going to be with a melee unit, so you're still moving into the front lines, and it might still get popped. It's a little weird, but there are ways to protect that blip around her, but it's still something I don't super love. Anyways, I digress. Her main thing is that she gives a 5-up Feel No Pain to a unit she joins. As well, if she joins Hybrid Metamorphs, because they already have a 5-up Feel No Pain, she improves it to a 4-up Feel No Pain. This is what we were talking about earlier with the biophages attached to this unit. Now you have a unit that blood surges, that has a great Feel No Pain. Yes, they're only 1 wound, but a 4-up starts to make that really like feel real. You can still start to scam 2 and 3 damage weapons. And then the biophages as well attaching to that just give it lethal hits. And then you have the cult icon to return models. This is a unit that can really start to scam you. As well, in Xenocults, there is a world where you attach it to 20 neophytes. We also saw that with TJ Lanikin doing it in Xenocreed, but that was Xeno was both. And now, if you were on an objective that you control, you return 7 to 9 models guaranteed in your turn. On a 20-man squad, that you have a 5-up Feel No Pain, that's going to be -1 to hit, -1 ballistic seal to shoot. Just giving it that 5-up Feel No Pain, it just stacks so many things that the unit becomes obscenely durable, and it's very difficult to shift, and just the amount of OC it has, it's just a fucking pain in the ass for your opponent to deal with. Outside of that, I think it's a pitfall to attach it to tacos, to flacos. It's just something to where it just doesn't mesh. If you want melee damage, oftentimes you want to go with the Hybrid Metamorphs. If you want a good shooting platform to buff, you go with the Neophytes. The tacos and the flacos tend to be something to where they are just good on their own, kind of with the tacos. The Flamer Acolytes are getting their Twin Link. They're just nice. They're cheap, efficient. The Twin Linked win the opponent's on objectives. Not all the time, I understand. It's something to where the unit kind of pays for itself. It's fine. It's 75 points worth of unit. It does its job, right? You don't need to buff that. It can just do its thing. Versus the Neophytes and the Metamorphs, they're a good platform to put things on, right? They offer a good volume of stats that are good for us to enhance, right? If we enhance the Acolytes, or the Acolytes with Hand Flamers, all they have is damage 1 stuff, right? Metas at least have damage 2, and the Neophytes not only bring back a bunch of guys in terms of like the defensive case of why you would buff them, but they also just have las cannons, seismic cannons, crack grenades, webbers. Like, they have a lot of very good weapons that attaching bonus like stats onto just helps push it because of weight of dice. Does that make sense? Cool. So Icon Ward, once again, very good, but GSC does not win the game through durability, usually. And while stat checks are good in terms of winning the game, I wouldn't necessarily say for the health of the game. In terms of what they offer, everything still has attacks into something that is T3, right? We're not like a knight to where autoguns and all that kind of stuff are still going to bounce off of us. Everything has play when shooting into neophytes, right? And so if you do this game plan, that's like 120 neophytes and 60 of them have a benefictus and 60 of them have an icon ward, it's fine, but eventually your opponent is going to be able to focus down a 20-man squad, right? The point of it existing in a list is oftentimes like everything going around it is making your opponent have to go with other things and not being able to fully commit to kill this. And not being able to fully commit to kill this without losing the game, right? So I think it's a good 1 of, maybe 2 of, but it's not something to where you just spam it. It's there to play a specific role, and you shouldn't be doing it more than that. Moving on, Jackal alphus. I think this is going to fall in line with the Abominant as one of the characters that I think is, well, maybe not super in line with the Abominant. The Jackal alphus, I think, is better off by itself. It can only attach to Adelan Jackals. It scouts 9, moves 12s just like them, and it makes it to where when models in the unit have shot, it is able to fire and fade 6 inches, right? So it can move 6 inches in the shooting phase, which is very good. And there's even a world where you can attach this to a Jackal squad that has a heavy stubber, or is it it's some type of stubber gun that has assault, so that you can then advance as well, still shoot, and get the fire and fade, right? That's a lot of movement. Being able to scout 9, move 12, move another 6 from the fire and fade, and then a d6 on top of that, you're looking at 27 inches, and then whatever the advance roll is. So we're looking at 28 to 33. Like, that is a lot of ground you can cover. But at the same time, jail tends to be more dead nowadays because you can take a turn or two off from scoring. And while the early pressure is nice, it's something to where I think just by herself, being a very cheap unit that's very fast for her points cost and is able to like run up on turn 1 and possibly do plunder for you, or, you know, screen out stuff. There's been times where I've had her run forward and then it pushes back a rapid ingress, and then she shoots and goes back. And so if they did rapid, now they have plus 6 inches on top. They're moving 14 inches to try and get to her, and that can, you know, make the math fucky, right? So overall, I think she's fine. She's definitely become playable, which if you have been a long time watcher of the channel, you know is huge for me because I fucking hated this unit. But overall, she's good. Moving on to our last character, I'm saving once again the best for last, the Benefictus. The Benefictus is the greatest unit you have ever seen. It can attach to 4 different units like everyone else can outside of the Abominant and Patriarch. All of our leaders attach to, you know, Tacos, Flacos, Metas, and Neophytes. I think she's only good on Neophytes. I have seen some cases where you're like running her and running demo charges for your 10-man Flamer Acolyte squad, so the las cannons can also get twin linked. It's too cute in my eyes. I think what you want is there's so much damage in the Neophyte squad, the 10-mans, or there's a niche case to where you run 10 with her in a truck, because you can run that in Outlander Claw with the Fire Assault Commander thing that gives you rerolls when you get out of a truck. So you get the you run the truck up, you get the Neophytes out. You've now dropped 21 OC onto a point, and then you can shoot with full hit and wound rerolls into something as another 20 brick drops somewhere else, and you use the Xenocult strat to get full hit rerolls there. It's a lot of damage. Just adding lethal hits onto our unit that it has basically the most volume in the entire army, that's able to get multiple activations because it's a shooting unit. It enables their Overwatch so much because you just have spike potential, because you effectively have 4 las cannon shots, 8 shots at 6-1 D3, 2 grenade launchers, however way you want to split that, 2 Devwound Flamers, and then 12 to 24 autogun shots, all having lethal hits. This is just something to where like a 5-man of Rangers can't walk at you and be like, I'm going to score 10 points because I do this thing. You go, that's crazy, die. Yeah, the Benefictus is great. Her other ability is that once a game, she can make her 5-up invuln go to a 4-up. With how saves are done nowadays, she's already kind of living any one activation that would wipe a squad of Neophytes, because you roll so many dice that what's left is normally going to be the 5-ups. But if it's something that has like a bunch of blast, right, like Aluris Terminators are going to be looking at you. If you think that they're going to be putting their damage 2 shots from their spears or wherever the hell into something else, I would say pop the 4-up invuln, because now it becomes very real to where you can scam this unit and allow at least her to live. She can't res the Neophytes or anything, because even in like Xenocult, to where it's, oh, if a Neophyte unit and this was joined to a Neophyte unit, the bodyguard unit would be dead. So she's by herself at that point, but then she's just a lady walking around with 2 las cannon shots. And she can't kill herself anymore, because even though she hazardous on 1 and 2s, it's no longer 3 damage, it's just 1. So it's been nothing but buffs for the Benefictus this entire edition. She has Psychic as well, so she ignores mods. I was talking earlier about having the Primus squad have the heavy weapons drop on the 2nd floor. Her dropping on the 2nd floor is now she is a 2 Psychic las cannon shots that hit on 2s. Is good, is very good. I think this is the unit that you want to attach to things. So overall, I won't waste too much more of your time. I'm trying to keep this a little bit on the shorter side. I know I tend to ramble a little bit, but in terms of characters that we do want to attach to things, and often to like 10-mans, I'll just kind of go through them a little quick. To maximize their output and maximize their efficiency, I'm looking at things like the Nexus, the Biophagus, the Abominant, the Patriarch, the Primus, the Icon Ward, and the Benefictus, right? Those are the units to where like they do a lot for the units they're joining, and it's not something to where if I just spent these points on another unit, I would get the same output, right? 15 pure strains is not the same as 10 pure strains with a Patriarch, right? They have a lot more upswing potential. So that's where the difference is. In terms of being able to add to the 5-mans for either cheap, good trading pieces or utility pieces, I could maybe see the Clamavis. And then we're looking at like the Patriarch and the Jackal alphus could possibly join a 5-man bike squad, but that's really about it. Actually, I will walk one thing back. I will say the Abominant and Biophagus as well, because Final Day really likes cheap, efficient units because they're still going to be getting the +1 to hit and access to the Twin Linked from the detachment. So they still kind of keep some good buffs. So in that area, you can go ahead and like run the 5-mans because it's just cheap little efficient trading pieces. Final Day is very good. You can do a lot of different things in Final Day. That's where you go for your most customization. And then in terms of units that I would say you can run by themselves, I think right now all I would want to run by themselves is the Jackal alphus, the Magus, and the Abominant. Obviously we can't run the Locust or the Clamavis. That's unfortunate. And then for things that I just wouldn't run altogether, it would be the Locust, the Clamavis. I would not run personally the... Yeah, I think it's just those two. Everything else kind of has a use case. Maybe also I wouldn't run the Magus. The Primus, I would still want to try in Host of Ascension. And then maybe somewhere else. I really just want that redeploy. The Icon Ward. Oh, I don't know if I mentioned that, but the Icon Ward goes in the 20-man squad. Yeah, I think it's just Locust, Clamavis, and Magus are the ones to where I wouldn't take at all. And then outside of that, you can kind of have a use case for everything else here. But at the same time, I would say that for now, I would try and limit your list to kind of have like 4 to 5-ish characters before we add in Lone Ops. Okay, so this is going to be before the Saboteur, before the Kellermorph, and before the Sanctus, right? Those are their own things. They do their own thing. It's different, okay? Those are just their own base units. In terms of characters that are getting buffs to things, 3 to 5 is where I would be comfortable in having. There's been lists to where my only characters I have attached are Beneficti, and there's been units to where I'm running a Primus and a Nexus and 3 Benefictus, and then like an Abominant and a Biophagus, and that's a lot of points in just characters and just buffs on an army that is basically T3 with a 5-up armor, right? The Aberrants are a lot more durable, so in things like Biosanctic, I could see you trying to get a lot more greedy there, but it's just kind of... So I hope this video was helpful in terms of kind of figuring out where you want to put characters. And let me know down in the comments below what you thought about it. Leave a like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And I am going to see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much. Roll that outro, baby. Goodbye.